Good afternoon, everybody. My apologies for a start. My video is not working, but like to welcome everyone to the webinar and thank you for attending. The webinar is on health and safety leadership in a quarry environment, as seen from a quarry manager's perspective. We suggest this is a model of management is real safety differently and is a model worth considering. Have a listen and please feel free to ask questions. Stuart has been in the quarrying industry for over 20 years and has a wide range of experience in disciplines required to successfully manage and advocate for high standards of health and safety required in a quarry environment. We hope you enjoy the session, and over to you, Stuart. We would like to thank Aggregates and the Institute of Quarrying for supporting this webinar. Stuart, if you'd like to start screen sharing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy it. As Mary said, my name is Stuart Spring and I'm an Area Operations Manager for Brett Aggregates. Today's subject is on health and safety leadership and where the manager can be influenced on an operation in this area. Just to give you a bit of background about myself. I left school at 16. I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to go to university. So I actually started working at Boots, working in the photo processing industry, which is a bit of a way away from what I'm doing now. And then I went on to work for Bonus Print, running a couple of their shops. But in 2000, I fancied a bit of a change. And I started working as a weighbridge operative for Lafarge Aggregates at Marlow Quarry. Bit of a difference. After that, two years later, I took over as site supervisor from a lovely chap called Alan Benning, who'd been running that site for 50 years. So as you can imagine, big shoes to fill on an operation. My first management job was actually at a site near London Gateway Services, crushing materials to make Type 1 and sub-base materials. And I subsequently got involved with the inert landfill at Tittenhanger, where I later became the assistant quarry manager. I left there in 2014 to become the manager at Hithermore for Brett Aggregates, where we did single size recycling, so washing of inert materials to make single sizes. After 2 years, I became the area production manager for both George Green and Park Lodge quarries, where I currently am. Park Lodge is a site that's in restoration. It's been operational for 15 years and is now coming to its end. George Green is a site that's got 1.2 million tonnes of gravel, but it also has 1 million tonnes of overburden or soils to remove to get to that. So with the size of the site, it's a lot to deal with in such a tight space. As you can imagine, competency is a key for demonstrating any management job. And I've been fortunate to work in an industry where I've been able to get lots of opportunity to get competence. You can see by the list what I've managed to achieve over the last 20 years. The one that I'm most proud of, having never wanted to go to college or never go to university, was I was given an opportunity by Lafarge to attend a distance learning course that was being run in conjunction with Leeds University, and I obtained a postgraduate certificate. After 2 years, I got a chance to go again and finish off for my master's degree. So it's a real thing that I never thought I'd ever be able to get. So enough about me. Bring us on to purpose of today. So what we're going to look at is a day in the life of the quarry manager, or the person ultimately responsible for safety on a site. And then we're going to look at what I feel quarrying companies do really well when it comes to managing safely compared to other industries. So this is what we're going to look at. So we're going to look at some statistics. We do love a statistic, obviously. We're going to look at what's actually led quarrying to this point. So some basic history, nothing too overall, but some basic information. We're then going to look at what the day-to-day job is, really, what the issues are, what the headaches are, but also what the positives of what this job does for me as a person and the other managers. We're going to look at what makes our lives easier, so what is in place to help us. And then, as I say, we're going to go on to what I feel has worked well in quarries compared to other industries. So statistics, actually, in all industries, we can be really proud of where we've come and the improvements that we've made over time. As you can see back at the beginning of the 20th century, there were a lot of people being killed at work every year. And even when the Health and Safety at Work Act was brought in, we were still killing around 700 people a year. So it's a lot of people that were dying. Obviously, we've implemented lots of legislation, which we'll look at some in a moment, and better working practices. And this has reduced that number. But unfortunately, we are still killing people. If we look as close as last year over the industries, things like agriculture and construction was still having a lot of fatalities in this modern day. But then when you look at quarrying, it's quite a low number, even though we're deemed to be one of the most dangerous work environments in the world. When you look at non-fatal injuries in the industries, you get a similar picture, even to the point where quarrying doesn't have a number to have as a statistic. So we've got to look at what we do well compared to other industries. So if we look at some basic history, we can see that at the beginning of the 20th century, like every other industry, quarrying was killing a lot of people, and deep mining was killing even more. The first sort of bit of regulation that was brought in was the Quarries Act in 1894. And this was brought in where the concept of owner was brought in to give some responsibility for safety. The Mines Quarries Act was brought in 1954 and then enacted in 1957, still kept that emphasis on the owner, but it also introduced statutory appointments on the manager and the deputy to have responsibilities. By this point, we were killing around about 40 people a year. So there was one thing that sort of made some big changes towards how quarrying operated. So you can see a date there, and a lot of people will be familiar with this date. So Friday the 21st October, in a village called Aberfan at 9:15 in the morning, this happened. So there's 150,000 tonnes of quarry waste slipped down a mountainside onto the village of Aberfan, mainly burying the Pent Glass Junior School. This killed 144 people. 116 of these were children. So that's actually a third of the village's children. And this was a seminal event that affected quarrying and made us change a lot of stuff. So the first legislation that controlled tips was the Mines Quarries Tips Act 1969, and this was followed by the Mines Quarries Tips Regulation in 1971. In this time, Lord Rubin, who was the chairman of the coal board at this time of Aberfan, he carried out a full health and safety review. And this led to the creation of the Health and Safety at Work Act, which we know well. The quarry explosive regs were brought in 1988 to control explosives better. And then with us joining the EU, lots of other regulations, which you will all know well, were introduced. All of these affect quarrying. The biggest one for us was the introduction of the quarry regs. My copy's here. This gives us a clear guide of how we can instruct quarry operators how to set out their working practices and standards in order to comply with it. It covers lots of things, so quarry design, health and safety, use of explosives, as we've said, inspections, geotechnical aspects. There's lots and lots of stuff in there. It's set out in 3 clear pieces of information. So there's the regulation itself, the approved code of practice, and the guidance of how to implement these bits. This is your Bible. If you can work to this, you're not going to go wrong. The one regulation which we're going to concentrate on today is Regulation 8. So I'm just going to read what is on the slide there. So it says, the operator must set up a management structure to ensure that a sufficient number of competent people to manage the quarry safely at all times. The structure of these competencies required should meet the needs of the identified risks and planned activities. It must include any subcontractors who have a specific role within the management of the quarry, and it must be set out in writing and included in your health and safety document. The 2 key lead pieces of information in this is what's known as the 81C and the 81D. The 81C is your manager or your competent individual who will take over control of that site at all times. And the 81D is basically someone who will substitute for that person when they're not in. So they are the key people you need. By this time, we'd got to the year 2000, and we're killing about 20 people and injuring 1,400. So the HSE implemented the hard target of Target Zero. This was designed to reduce accident injuries by 50% by 2005, so within 5 years. In order to do this, the Quarry's National Joint Advisory Committee, or QuinJac, was set up with members drawn from the HSE, trade associations, trade unions, and the professional bodies in order to focus on health and safety and promoting this within the sector. What it's actually done is reduced the accident rate to 80% over this time. But even with that, we've still injured 3,500 people with injuries that are reportable to the HSE, and 31 people have died. So it doesn't mean we always get it right. You can see in this slide that actually we've got the fatality numbers right down until about 2017, where the number did spike. And this acted as a real wake-up call for us, and it's made us focus again. So we have to question, are we working safely all the time, or is it just luck? So what have we got that can help us to implement all of these safety policies, procedures, and do it so that safety becomes a culture first? We've got one person, the Quarry Manager. If that person's on board and puts in everything in place, you are on top of everything. Industry and the companies can put in anything till the cows come home, but if you haven't got a person to drive it, that message won't get home. So you need to have someone who's capable of doing that. They are a pivotal role at that point. So the day-to-day role of the Quarry Manager is a fundamental part of the success of an operation. As you can see from this slide, there's lots of things that are going on in his head. He's thinking about a lot of stuff. Managing the resources that he's given by the company and putting in the guidance that's within here will make sure that his operation will run as safe as it can, as efficiently as it can, and as productive as it can. And implementing of risk controls, site rules, and good planning will help him achieve this. Good communication with the senior management, enforcing authorities, local communities, contractors, and the site staff will mean that that operation will work safely and efficiently. The Quarry Manager is there to guide his team in order to make sure that everything is safe, everything is maintained, and everything doesn't make a mess of what he's in control of. It takes away that danger and potential high risk and the higher costs that could come from that. They are there to monitor and maintain and manage all of those aspects and making sure it's documented so that everything is taking place. With this being driven, Target Zero is achievable because no quarry manager wants anybody getting hurt. So the three areas that the Quarry Manager must be able to deal with when he's on site to make it successful. He must be able to implement the legislation, company procedures, risk assessments, safe systems, training. All of those things must be implemented. But the last one on that list is the trick. If he can make it done with a safe, driven culture and behaviour, everybody will be on board. Communication with the senior management, enforcement authorities, and contractors, suppliers, and your staff will embed that within the site and make sure that everything is done safely. And the final group on that page is the management and maintenance of the site equipment and the systems. This should be done in a manner that drives improvement, keeps equipment safe and operational, and with an accurate record of the upkeep to show any internal or external bodies that safety is being prioritised. The Quarry Manager is the main driver behind safety within a site. This person's aptitude to deal with a variety of issues on a daily basis and give the site staff and the company management team a focal point is pivotal. It also gives external parties like neighbours or the council someone to come to if they've got a concern. That person needs to be on board with everything that's being given. If they're not on board with the messages that are being raised, then chances are no one else will be. So all of these aspects help to create a safe operation. and they ensure that the senior management and any external body coming to site will know that it's being operated safely. So, get a bit more onto a daily activities that I would do. The morning normally starts with a team brief. Now, it looks formal in the picture and it looks all exciting, but what this tends to be is a cup of tea, talk about what's going to happen for the rest of the day, have a few jokes, and then work out what we're going to do. We do have more formal ones, but these tend to be if there's a new initiative that needs to be rolled out, or if there's been an incident that needs to be discussed. But it tends to be much more of an informal thing first thing in the morning. What we then tend to do is get the guys to work, and I'll end up having another cup of coffee. This is where my day does change. If it's a maintenance day or we've got contractors or visitors coming to site, I may end up doing a lot of inductions for people. Now, this can take quite a bit of time out of the day if people turn up at different times, especially if they're unexpected, because you could be dealing with something else. But they are a pivotal part of your armour on site, because this is your opportunity to get your message across to who you want to get your message to. And they're the way of driving your key messages and where your key issues are. Part of this induction tends to be looking at safety paperwork and reviewing. So you're making sure that the people doing the work are competent, understand what they're expected to do, and have agreed everything that you have in place. Once we've done this, I might have another cup of coffee, tends to happen. But then we'll look at what we need to do from there. So we might do some site inspections, and this will be carried out as part of a walk round. The other part of this will be what we call an alive and well conversation. So this is an opportunity for me to go and talk to the guys who are carrying out work on site and look at any unsafe practices that are being undertaken and get a message of how we could improve on that. But also it's a brilliant opportunity to highlight any positive behaviour or methods that have been demonstrated. The rest of my day may be filled with lots of stuff. So it may be things like toolbox talks for staff or for contractors who have come in. It may be doing things like audits or actions from audits, that sort of thing. But what tends to happen is dealing with finance and setting out production and maintenance for the rest of the week or the month. It's a good job. I can't moan about it, but we do have lots of issues that could affect what's happening, and they do affect what could affect my way of managing safely. From personal experience, you're never really on holiday when you're on holiday. We do have them, and we have supervisors that cover, but you're always thinking, making sure they're all right. The only time I know everybody's safe is at Christmas. And this is where we generally are closed. I know there's managers who run bigger operations, who run 365 days a year, 24/7, who are going to hate me for saying this. But that's the only time that really I get a real mental break, because you're not worried about anything. Multiple things can go wrong and tend to happen at once. In preparation for today, my laptop decided to break, so I've had to borrow one, which makes it interesting. But also my plant's broken down this morning, so I've been dealing with them remotely to try and get them going. You're on call 24/7. The site still has to be maintained safely when you're shut. And if we have a security issue and we have 24-hour security and they give you a call, you will have to deal with it. You are accountable for everything, be it top down or bottom up. You are responsible for safety, any environmental management, planning, liaising with external stakeholders, and managing costs. So the senior management and your staff will expect you to be able to answer their needs and their requirements. The final bit, which is more of a wider issue, is about employment of new people. The age profile of people in our industry is actually that 55% of workers are over 45 and only 17% are aged between 18 and 32. So it is an aging workforce. And with the hours that we do and the type of work we do, it's quite difficult to get young people to work in this industry. But they are encouraging people to come on board, but it is a long process. So, but now for the positives. It's a busy job, it's a tricky job, but there are lots of them. Because of how we work and the Quarry Manager being influential, it is your site. You can manage it. Even though you've got to work to company procedures and to keep going on about it, to these, you have got an opportunity to run it how you want to run it. You can embed a safe culture. You can embed safe working practices and methods. It is your opportunity to do that. And if you get people on board with you, brilliant. If you stick to these, keep going on again, it is a simple and effective way. And if you get the HSE come to site, this is what they're going to go by. And if you're meeting this, they won't have any quibbles. The best bit about it is it's definitely not boring. My job changes every day. There's new challenges and opportunities. Some days are brilliant, some days not so much, but I love it. So things that do help us. I'm fortunate to work in an industry which has a willingness to share and help with information readily available. Other quarry managers know that anybody's there if they need help, so they do share it. Other ways of getting shared information are through places like the Mineral Products Association, the IOQ, Safe Quarry. Websites are available and there's lots of information. In the southern region, there is a cross-company group called the South East Quarry Landfill Group, or SELQLG, which hold an annual safety day, which Mary is involved with. It has a number of stands dedicated to various safety issues, so working at height, mobile plant, isolation, where cross-company groups will go, listen to what the speaker's got to say and answer questions, and then they can learn off each other to improve their competence. This event is really well supported and the HSE love it, with Simon Edwards, the local quarry inspector, attending every year. Within the companies, Brett, we definitely do it. Because it's small teams, it's an opportunity to share. So our management team get together, we have regular SheQ meetings, which allow us to share best practice and improve our sites and our knowledge. And I couldn't let him get away with not being in here. We have reliable and competent supervisors. This is Graham Potts, my supervisor. He's been in the business for 35 years and he is brilliant at what he does. He's allowing me to be here by managing the issues we've got on site. So having people with competence and ability to do what they do is brilliant to back us up. So, as I say, brief run through on making life easier. Use your regs, they do you a job. If you understand them, you're laughing. Lead by example. If you practice what you preach, people will follow and they will learn from you. Be visible, be available and be seen. If you're not out there with them, they won't necessarily listen to you. When it comes to safety, always allow time. If you give it time, it will be done safely. If you try to rush people, that's where they cut corners. Keep it simple and make it easy, really. There's no point in overcomplicating stuff if you can get away with it. And the final one, never be afraid to ask for help. There are people out there with lots of knowledge. I've been here 20 years and still think I'm the new boy. So there are a lot of people out there to help. So getting on to the sort of final part, this is my view on what I feel has worked within quarrying with safety compared to other industries. The industry does put safety first. It has made massive strides to get it this way. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that when you're in it. But when you look at the stats and how we work, it does show that they have gone a long way with it. And people are empowered to say no if they don't feel something's right. I can say to my guys regularly, can we do this? And they'll say, not sure if we can do it that way, but let's come up with another way and we can do something. So that is what you want. You want people involved and taking responsibility. the industry's worked with the enforcing authorities. So QuinJack, the MPA, IOQ have worked alongside the HSE to use the industry knowledge to improve. The MPA have introduced this year their Fatal 6. So what this is the 6 main areas where people get hurt within our industry. And this gives us a focus. I actually use this in my induction, and it's a good way of pointing out the real danger areas. Knowledge is there to help increase people's understanding and focus on methods. So QuinJack, as I say, is drawn from the membership and the HSE and the relevant trades to improve health and safety and focus on people's training standards and competence. The industry has agreed the legislation and they reviewed it. So this is both from a safety standard and from an environmental standard. So we've got an audit process, ISO standard, that focuses on what's in place so we can review how well we're doing. The industry shares incidents and outcomes from those incidents so we can learn. So safequarry.com, the South East Quarry Landfill Group, the MPA, the IOQ, all have websites, and we get regular incident alerts when things have happened. We share best practice and we award it. So the IOQ and the MPA both have award ceremonies every year for initiatives that have been put in, and the internal companies have their own schemes. Brett, ourselves, do a near miss of the month competition where we award where someone's either improved on something or they've spotted something before something dangerous happens. The final one is cross-company learning helps us improve. So again, the South East Quarry Landfill Group Day is a massive way of getting information cross-company by groups getting together and meeting and sharing. So it is a great way of us doing it. So just as a roundup, we've gone through some statistics, as we know, love them. We've gone through the basics of the quarrying history and the legislation that's been implemented. We've also gone through the day-to-day role and the headaches and issues that we have and the positives when it comes to that and how to make our lives easier. And then we've looked at the areas where I feel the industry has excelled in safety. I hope you found it interesting and been an insight into the life of me and other quarry managers. Thanks ever so much for your time. Please stay safe.
Thank you, Stuart. Interesting presentation. We've had a few questions come through, if you're happy to answer some of those.
I will try.
I know you will. What do you think was responsible for the increase in the stats in the deaths in 2017 and 18?
Oh, tricky one. Possibly a little bit of complacency. When you're in an industry, you do get sort of relaxed to what you're doing, and you do tend to think that we'll be all right if we do it the same way as we've always done it. So you should always challenge what you've got in place. This is where it's key to check what you're doing. Don't just think that the norm is all right. So it's always worth reviewing your safety practices, like your risk assessments and how people are doing stuff. Again, it's where the alive and well conversation comes in really well, because it's an opportunity for people to talk and see what we can do better.
I think David was going to pick up on the next one.
Yeah, thanks. Stuart, that was brilliant. Also true today. For those that don't know in the room, I spent my formative years in the mines and quarries sector. I've got a couple of comments to make first, and I've got 2 questions I'm down to, which are teasing some things out that the EWMG are looking at. First thing, fair enough, is I've been campaigning within IOSH that people in your role should be able to obtain IOSH membership, because everything you've shown and competency of understanding it is superior than some health and safety advisors I've seen who are probably going through the membership process. I'll be careful what I say, because I know that the current health and safety manager for my company I used to work for is somewhere listening in. And he's a great guy. We spoke a number of issues. So and I learned so much with that organisation. Noting with Robins, who was chair of the NCB, he was very much villain term hero, wasn't he? Because with the Aberfan fund, half of that the NCB insisted under his leadership, half of that would go to the community, go to remediate the tip, rather than the NCB pay it all. So check his CV. He's not as good a guy as people quoted. The 81D, interestingly, he started as a substitute manager, because the theory is the 81D happens, the deputy, when you're away.
Yeah.
With 24/7 operation, I had to have 2 81Ds to cover the time I was in bed.
Yeah.
The phone would still go at 5 past midnight.
Yeah.
Even that. So I think that's a thing with it. And it's worth noting, well, the quarry operation, I'm right in saying, includes other buildings and operations like crushing plants, milling plants adjacent to it.
Yes.
So it's worth noting that I'm very interested on the age limit, and professionally with the university where I am, I'm very much into capability with MSDs with age. I've done work in both waste and construction, and happy obviously if companies want us to become involved in trying to work out with that, because that is a real worry, because with knowledge going, and that goes back to my first question, how much do you think knowledge of an operation and the risks of that operation is when considering health and safety competency? There's a feel that health and safety people can go into an industry without any knowledge. We're very much into getting young people in the profession. I'm a believer that you need the experience to go with it. What's your thought on that first question?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll talk about Graham, my supervisor, or Chad as I know him. He's not very good on a computer, can't use a computer. Would struggle on something like this. Really doesn't like talking to people, but I rely on that man so much, and the knowledge that he's got of that plant and that site and what goes on there is key to what I do. So I'm really a secretary in a way, because I look after the systems and the paperwork side. That man runs that operation in detail. So I'll be able to go out there and say, oh, what's the problem? And he'll know exactly what's going on with what's on the plant. He might not necessarily be able to send an email, but does he need to be able to send an email? I can send an email. So that's key. But the problem is he's been in the industry 35 years. He's not getting any younger. And what is then coming in after that to replace that and learn from him? As I say, I've been in the industry 20 years and I still feel I'm the new boy. So it does take time to get to a point where you feel confident in what you're saying and what you're doing. Yes, it's difficult.
And that takes me on to my second question really nicely, that in the waste sector, waste collection, in many local authorities, the supervisor is someone that sits in the telephone and has never done the job. And I just feel that the most important thing about the quarry sector is that the supervisor is competent very often in the jobs they are supervising. They can detect the problem and come up with a safe way of working. And I don't see definitions of supervision that have been put together by some national bodies. They seem to miss this key part of it, and I don't know why. Have you any thoughts as to why people are frightened of this bit?
I don't honestly know, to be honest. From my experience, if they've got the knowledge and they know what's going on that site, they're good at what they're doing. It's a tricky one. You can't have a supervisor sat just on the end of a phone, or it's not right. They've got to be out living it. And that's what I say for the Quarry Manager. Me being in my office, and I'll hold my hands up, there are times where you are stuck in the office. You have to be. But if I'm not getting out and about and seeing what my guys are doing, I don't understand what's going on. So you have to be out and about. And I know from other quarry managers will be here, that's the same thing. If you get out and see what they're doing, you will understand the operation. And
that's the biggest frustration I saw going into local government from a quarry company, that supervisors did not know. They were being paid to do something, and yet they did not know how the J job was being run. So I think
Yeah.
for me, that's a real important lesson that is still true today. And that's where I badge this safety differently, because it is about safety differently. It's about workforce engagement. It's
Yes,
about,
definitely.
and everything you've talked about is workforce engagement. And by the way, I had my cup of coffee after I walked around the works, first of all, because of the shift. Mary, thank you, Stuart. Mary, over to you. I've had my say. Thank you.
You're off your box now, David.
I am.
Yeah, good. We've had some questions. I think you've probably already answered, Stuart, about leadership and improving behaviour-based safety and near-miss reporting. So what would be your view? Do all those roll in together to bring up the standards?
Definitely. Everybody should be empowered to raise a near miss or raise an issue, no matter who it is they're raising it on. So if the manager of a business is out doing something dangerous, he should be spoken to about it. Not in a way that you're doing something nasty, but this is where a conversation works. If you can have a good, open safety debate at that point, that's where you'll get people to buy into what you want. So yes, they all lead in, and empowerment is the biggest one. If you guys don't feel that they can stop and take 5 minutes to think about what they're doing, and they're more worried about production, that's a worry to me.
Okay. Another one that's interesting. The stats are a useful tool. However, the industry has had a massive reduction in the workforce. This may or may not reflect adversely on the stats. Clearly, modern machinery has helped, CCTV and other many useful aids. Have you got a comment on that?
Yeah, possibly. Always innovation does help. We have reduced people, but then that puts on other dangers, because if you're reducing people, you're expecting people to do more. So whereas before we might have been doing an 8-hour day, tends to be most people are doing a 10-hour day within quarrying. So it's horses for courses on that respect. I think the key bit is making sure who you've got in place is not afraid to stop and think about stuff. So, yeah.
So another question is, would you agree your emotional intelligence, interpersonal skills, impact on the ability to get people to take on board the message you're trying to impart? Interacting with people in a respectful manner rather than barking at people will get more buy-in from your crew? Yes,
definitely. From my side, anyway, that's how I work. There's no point in just barking orders. I'll hold my hands up. Sometimes you do get a bit frustrated, and that may happen. But 9 times out of 10, you try to be much more open and engaging with your team, because if you can be like that, they will buy in. I think that's going to be even more pivotal with the younger age group, because it's slightly different now.
In what respect?
Well, in regards to younger people work in a different way. I think older people are used to how it used to be, and if a manager was to bark at them, they wouldn't necessarily take it to heart. But in regards to the younger workforce, you might get that. So it's better to be open and engaged with them rather than trying to just say, you will do this.
I had a question. What are the fatal 6?
Now you're going to test me. So it's machinery and isolation, working at height. You are going to test me now, Mary. Let me think, and I'll come back to you. I'll write it down while you're asking the next one.
Sorry, I made you jump in on that one. Do you think you and organisations can remain compliant and safe without leadership? And if not, why not?
Say that again.
Do you think that you and or your organisation can remain compliant and safe without leadership? If not, why not?
I think you always need leadership, because the managers of a site, of a company, will give you what's expected. How you roll that out on your site is down to you in a way. So the methods you use to do that. But I think you will always need some leadership within the industry. I've been fortunate to work with some managers who've been brilliant for me, leadership wise. They've not, I wouldn't have said they were just what an old fashioned manager. They've been leaders in an industry. So yes, I've been fortunate with that. So I think you do need leadership, but that leadership needs to be empowered down. So if it's your senior management leading, that's empowered to someone like myself, and I can then lead by example to my team. Hope that answers.
It does. Another question: how often do you engage with the enforcing authorities, specifically the EA and the HSE?
The EA, not as much as it used to be. I think that's again down to numbers for them, really, more than anything else. Relatively regular from a point of view of information that we have to send them. We did a training day with the EA at my site last year, where we had 6 inspectors come to site to learn about the differences between inert waste, windfall ballast, which is ballast that's been dug from a building site, and quarry-based ballast, which has come from another quarry, just so that they can understand the issues that affect us through our permit. The HSE, I've had them to my site twice. I've had Simon to my site twice. I know that if I needed to speak to Simon about something, I could email him and he would reply. There's a couple of bits of information that have been in this presentation that I got from Simon, so he's very approachable. And when we go to safety days and to training days, Simon's regularly there and he'll do a spot. So he is very approachable.
Good. Do you want the fatal 6? Shall I read those out?
Hang on, no, I'm getting there. I'm missing one. So the ones I've got: isolation, working at height, dust, silica dust, road traffic accidents, and site traffic. And I've lost the other one, so you'll have to tell me the other one.
By moving or falling object.
That's the one.
Question: is there any advice you would give to a person who is starting off within the health and safety life, which you have learned throughout your career?
Speak to other people, learn from others, ask questions, get as much as you can from others, listen, learn. I'm learning all the time. As I say, been in the industry 20 years, still the new boy in my mind. There's sometimes when I come out with stuff and I think, did I really say that? That's all you can do, is keep listening, keep learning. Feel confident in everything you're doing. So, good luck to you with that.
Right. How do you involve top management in taking health and safety seriously, especially in safety drills or during safety weeks?
I think we're quite fortunate within Brett that our senior management are pretty on board with our safety. They put that first. I think they'd be willing to be involved in everything. I think if you email them and ask them to come down, they'll come down. I think we've done drills on site, like a fire drill. We had one last year when we had our dig and cart contractor on site. So we've got 5 staff of our own, and we had 10, 15 contractors on site, and we did a fire drill. Gary Langton, who was our manager at the time, was on site, and he organised it, and everybody came to it. Everybody stopped what they were doing and came straight to the meeting point, to the point where one of the guys who was right on the other side of the site came down about 5 minutes after everybody else had done, when we hadn't really expected him to make it all the way across. So I think you can get senior management involved at any point. If they're not involved, that's a worry, really.
Respirable crystalline silica affects
Yes.
a lot of industries, as we know.
Yes.
IOSH have a big drive on it as well. Question: what respirable crystalline silica controls are often used at quarries?
Dust suppression is a big one. So if we're crushing, they'll have sprinkler systems fitted onto them. For roadways, there's various types of sprinkler systems. So tractors with Bowsers, there are misting sprays. We've had sprinklers fitted in various places to go on after a certain amount of time to put water down. There are chemicals you can get that help with this, but it's quite expensive. But for the bigger operations, it may be worthwhile. But yeah, they're the main things we've got. So it's mainly using water to suppress the dust. I'm fortunate, I've worked in the sand and gravel industry all my time, so it's a wet process, so most of the material is damp. The only time we do really get any dust from the process is the crusher, and that's got sprinklers. So yeah.
Do you carry out occupational health screening on sites?
Yes, we do. We do monitoring every couple of years, so we'll get a guy come in and fit mobile units onto our people to see what the levels are. We'll do boundary monitoring. We also do biannual health checks. So the guys will go to a site and they'll go into what I call a sort of minibus, and they'll have their lung capacities checked and eyesight checked. So yes, I've just seen something pop up about x-rays. We have done that on a couple of sites where we've got high silica levels. Again, I've been fortunate to work on sites where the levels are quite low, so we've not had that done here. But Lydd, which is one of our quarries down in the deep south of Kent, it's quite a high silica site, so they've had x-rays done there on a couple of their guys.
I'm going to roll this one in together. How do you handle issues of behavioural based safety culture with regards to the ageing workforce in view of workers' complacency? And how do you encourage mental health and awareness? I'm going to roll those two in together.
From a point of view of the first bit, it's key that you get buy-in from everybody. Again, I don't know if it's just me being fortunate, the people I've worked with, they all want to stay safe. They don't want to get hurt. So if you empower them to feel that way, they will stay safe. Mental health, to be fair, in the quarrying industry is something we're not that great at yet. I know it's a lot of work to be done there. Mates in Mind is one of the things that's been rolled out recently, and there's more people getting involved with that side of it. Brett's ourselves are looking at various things, and we've got a 24/7 call line that we can call to if we have got problems, that we can talk to people. I've always been approachable, so my staff know that if they've got an issue where they need to talk about stuff, they can come and see me in confidence. And they will be given time to deal with something if they need to deal with it. But it is something that needs to be worked on a little bit more, mental health, yeah.
And it's about knowing your people as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. If you know your people and what their expectations are, you can work with them. Some people will want to be pushed and driven into doing more stuff. Other people are much more laid back and would prefer you not to be that way with them and have a conversation. One of my guys, if you say, oh, we need to do this, he gets his back up. Whereas if you say, look, we need to do this, how can we do it? He'll buy into it straight away. So it's just how you deal with that.
A couple of easy ones now, Stu. What tools do you use to capture near-miss reports?
So we've got various things. So we've actually got a near-miss pad where we can write stuff on. We've got a portal called IFS, which we use to log them onto, and they go back to our head office and they collate what issues we've had, and they'll come up with some graphs which we get a monthly report on, so we can discuss them at safety meetings. Bit of paper, back of the hand, phone call on the phone, shout on the radio. In a way, if you haven't got something to hand and there's something happened, it's a call. But the important bit is managing it. So if one of my guys sees someone doing something unsafe, they know that they can go up to that person and stop them doing it, whoever it is. And that's the key bit, is actually managing it. Recording it, we need to do, and that helps us understand what's happening on sites. But managing the actual dangerous activity is the right thing. So having a conversation, asking people to not do what they're doing, and seeing how we can help them if it's something that they're doing because they can't think of any other way, that's the right thing to do.
Back to a question about the accidents going up in 2017, 2018. What initiatives do you think came out of that to improve standards and management systems throughout the industry?
Well, the Fatal Six is one that's been rolled out on the back of that to highlight the big issues. At the MPA Awards last year, when it happened and the numbers were high, a lot of the conversation was about that, and it was hit hard home to everybody that we need to buck up our game here. So there was lots on that. So internally, we've had lots of focus on the big things. So isolation being one. So we've done audits. As you saw, one of the examples on my thing was a guarding audit. So we do guarding audits, but we do the same for our isolators and stuff like that. So yeah, lots of initiatives along those lines. But the Fatal Six is probably the big one that was driven out from the MPA, and that's helped us.
What strategies or methods have you adopted for the implementation of your policies, risk assessments, and safety procedures?
Strategies. I'll have to have a think about that one, Mary. I think.
There's one.
I don't want to answer. It's not really an easy win. I think it's, the key bits are keeping it simple. So getting the key messages across. So your induction for all your guys, all your visitors and all your contractors is key. So that drives home what you want to focus on. Your alive and well walks. So getting out and about, seeing what's going on, having conversations with people works. We've actually got, as part of that, we've got an isolation board in my office where we can get people to demonstrate how they isolate equipment. To make sure they've got the basic understanding that they need for doing that part of the job. So yeah, there's lots of things that it's lots of steps rather than it being one or two. But it's keeping focus on everything. It's not letting anything sort of drop off. So it's trying to, yeah.
Good.
All right.
Anything else you'd like to add, just as a general sort of soundbite to the people that are listening, bearing in mind they're not all from our industry?
Yeah, I think always don't be afraid to ask questions. Speak to people. People love being spoken to. They might be a little bit shy at the beginning, but once you engage with people and get an understanding of what they're doing, they'll give you everything back. And don't be afraid to speak to someone if they are doing something dangerous. You'd rather talk to them there and have that uncomfortable moment than walk away from it and 2 minutes later they're on their back injured. So I think that's a key message from that.
Question from me, management of contractors, and don't laugh because I know I'm a contractor. How do you think that impacts on health and safety in the industry?
Yeah, it's a big one. It's one of the ones that is tricky. I think a lot of the bigger companies that we use are buying into it. We've got a VETA, which is another system which is used for managing contractors. If they're signed up to a VETA, they're to a standard. So we know they're doing what we ask them to do. But there are still contractors that we use that we struggle with. Tyre fitters is one that comes to mind. They can be a little bit roguish, especially if it's dealing with a lorry driver who's just broken down up the road. So that can be interesting. But this is, again, where if you have a conversation and manage them, if you're not happy with what they're doing, bye-bye.
Coming towards the end of the questions, you'll be glad to hear.
Thanks for that.
There's a couple of quarry ones, like any tips for safe management of large stockpiles?
Just make sure they're not got any upright faces on them. Manage your faces. That's the key bit. And if they're getting too big, get them assessed. So get your geotechnical assessor to come in and have a look at them and give you a professional guide on them. If you don't, again, it comes down to all of it. If you're not happy with something, ask for help.
And Do you think the 8.1D position is properly used across the industry, or is it misused or misunderstood?
I think it is used well, but getting a good supervisor is, yeah, it's difficult. And it comes down to that, trying to keep competence in the industry. And when you've got it, treating them right. I think supervisors are the most underlined, the misused person in a way. They're the most important person on site. I do my job because of Chad. So they are key to what we do. I think we do use them quite well for what they are. I think we can drive them more to give them more authority, maybe. But yeah, I think on the whole, they're used well.
I think the strength of our industry is working together and
definitely.
each other and sharing.
Definitely. We're part of a team, my 5 guys, including myself, well, guys and girls, that's our home in a way. We're there longer than we are at home, so we look after each other. We're a little family, and I would say most quarry managers feel the same about all their teams.
Right, I'm going to say thank you. You've been a star. Thank you for the presentation. I think a lot of people found it very interesting. And
No
I know David wants to just do a quick wind up as we finish. Thanks,
No
Stuart.
problem. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again to everyone again for this. Concur with what Stuart said about tyre fitters. They're law to their own. The next session is 2 weeks' time. In a way, it's a link here. Quarry work has a lot of shift work. So we'll be looking at exploring sleep, the importance of sleep, and lack of sleep. How do you manage shift work? How do you actually look after the well-being of people? And how does lack of sleep and lack of concentration affect both important jobs and other jobs we have reputational risk? And I wonder if we actually consider effects of sleep in our accident investigation processes appropriately. So that is in 2 weeks' time, and Friday will be going out. So on that point, thanks again to everybody. And in the usual rude way, we all just disappear and it goes blank. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much.